and the synchronization that have to happen. So as an example, right, how this multiple stakeholder, even FEMA, right, they have, but this is not supply chain. Basically, they maintain the list when the hurricanes, when some of the service is done, right, like the power lines or communication lines. They will call someone, right? They have books and say, oh, this is the person you should call, this phone number, this email. But when really hurricane happens, they look at, oh, a lot of them actually no longer work for the company, you know, and then the contact information is all the information not update. What I'm trying to say here is when you have data which actually have to be maintained or right, kind of copied by the multiple stakeholders to make sure the data's quality, its consistency, up to date is not that trivial. And the blockchain could help this. So this is another the example that the pilot did last year by banks, these European banks, that for the agriculture commodity trade cross borders. This basically soybean shipment. They use this so-called easy trade platforms. That's basically used by multiple stakeholders involved in this the agriculture commodity shipping, where sort of using digital documents that include the sales contract, a letter of credit, and certificates, all of them they digitalized, they put on the blockchain to avoid duplicates like tasks as well as the manual work to check the document as well as the copies, where you have to take one document, take some data, and put in another document manually, right, to duplicate the data. So basically, what this is like I shared before. So we saw the blockchain where it seems like only the document flow between the partners, right? There are no central kind of view, but if you use the distributed ledger, that can bring transparency. But as I said, right, it's a distributed ledger. It's not like there is a centralized database. So still, everyone has their own right, kind of a database for just using a blockchain to achieve this automation of data synchronization and the transaction, the validation. So this is used to track the agriculture commodity. I think the highlight here is the auto checking capability. Also all the documents are digitalized. So here is just the steps actually involved, where the bank has issued the letter of credit, and then the involved shipping companies to provide all the required certificates, as well as the FDA is part of this with their certificate for the agriculture, the goods, the export. As well as the way that the banks can automate the transactions in terms of the custody of the goods and then the financial, because they provide the letter of credit. So this mainly actually initiated by the banks doing commodity trade. So that's one example. I think what this trying to say, the benefits here is reduced risk of fraud. The data verification as well as the quality of the data. So that's basically the benefits, as seems like consistent with what I just mentioned earlier. So other use cases, marine insurance, where this actually Maersk and a group of companies behind this proof of concept, where along the insurance value chain, how to share information and then improve the process. So I mentioned those because like those are very sort of relevant to the industry and then the kind of what we have in the Houston area. So the company behind, if you know, the Willis Towers Watson, that's actually in the insurance industry, and Maersk, the Microsoft is the one actually providing the technology support. The benefits basically to make sure that the quality of the data that are actually high, and then this so-called error-free data movement along the value chain, as well as to automate the activities, so reduce the cost, and then the invoicing, the processing, the process, and reduce administrative costs. So I mentioned this because they actually have very good discussion about the insights, right? What works, what doesn't, what's actually important for the adoption of blockchain to succeed in a real kind of a business environment. Is that what they try to highlight here is the cooperation of industry participants. So basically, because it's a distributed ledger, so you do need the stakeholders to sort of commit, right? So they will say, oh yeah, we will participate, we would like to be part of it. If they want to say, oh, I don't want to share anything, I just maintain my own database, right? I want information from everyone, but no information I will share or disclose to anybody else. Then if you have that mentality, it may not work, right? So they highlight that the cooperation of industry participants is very, very important, as well as it's not just an IT issue, right? So if you think, oh, this is just oh, I talk with our system admin, that would not, because you have to think the business process. It's more, it's not what the issues like a database or IT actually is related to the operation and the business process side. So you need to think about the culture, the process, and how actually blockchain actually can help to improve the process. And they also mentioned the security, data ownership, because it's a distributed ledger. We do share information, maybe also work together. So there always this question of what data I share, what data, in terms of the security and the control of the access to the data. From the operational the process, how to integrate that with the IT, so they have to work together. So customs, okay, so this is from World Customs Organization. They're very interested in this, and they mentioned three major areas. One is the compliance, right, to reduce fraud and then facilitate trade, and as well as this way they can get information earlier. They don't have to wait until the last minutes to have the entry data, as well as the interoperability. And here they mentioned a lot of use cases. This from CBP, actually this September 2018, they have an emerging technology, sort of a work group looking at the blockchain, how it could be applied. They have some sort of pilots just last year, and also actually they didn't do the last two, so they did the first one, and then there was actually a report. They're still work in progress. Is supposed to have that ready later the next month. So basically use that track document flow where that information they receive, particularly in the case of the country of origin of the products. And one thing that particularly they look at is the fish. Okay, so the seafood traceability. They have this program. It's called COOL, where it's actually country of origin labeling of the seafood. And why it's important, actually, if you eat seafood, right? The 80% of seafood actually imported, and then more than 1/3 of them actually mislabeled. So that's very high in number, right? So 80%, that's like 1/3. Actually, a lot of the seafood perhaps you eat in restaurants, they just when imported actually mislabeled. Maybe Christian can correct me because he knows definitely all the data in restaurants. So here are the agencies we had actually for seafood labeling. The import security, and NOAA, FDA, USDA, and then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, the CBP. So there are a lot of things behind, because the chemicals in the food, where it actually come from, and then the documents actually they received by the U.S. The agencies, mislabeling, and then also in endangered species, because this is actually right what it is, and as well as here is all the data they have to submit. There are a lot of agencies involved behind, and it's quite a sophisticated and a complex scenario. That's why they try if blockchain can help. To be serious, I mean, to be honest, they from CVP perspective, they know the problem they face, and then if you say some technology can help, they really take the really hard case, give to you, and say, try this, it works, or not. And Actually, very few percentage, very small, tiny, for the seafood actually imported, actually checked, because it's perishable and then you can't wait, have a long time to wait until they check every imported the seafood. So they have this predict the risk-based sort of process to give a score. Say if a high risk, I will check, but it's only a very small percentage actually checked. It is, as you can see here, it's 2%. The really checked sample actually is just 0.4%. Okay, so Carnet, I will not really put much time because they didn't do this pallets. Basically, that's imported goods you only use for trade shows and then promotion, and then it's not really imported. And okay, so there's some misconception of blockchain. One is just try to understand it with a snapshot view because the technology changed very fast. The second one is privacy. They will say, oh, it's public ledger, then I don't have all my trade secret will be in public. My competitor can see my data. It's not actually true. It's true in the case of Bitcoin, as example, as blockchain. But there are so-called privacy coins. What they do is you can validate the transactions, verify information, but you don't see anything. This is sound like a magic. I'll give you an example here. So what it means as a distributed ledger, right? So you maintain the database. What you see actually data sealed in the envelope, but it allows you to validate it's correct. It doesn't say anything. Let's say if it's the banks, they work together, have a distributed ledger. We work together, but I will not see. I can validate the transactions from other banks. I don't know what's going on. So I validate actually seal the data, so without opening it. You can do this for all sort of transactions or send data. For example, tax returns, right? So, for example, you can validate, okay, you receive the correct amount of tax, the calculation all correct, but you don't have the original data. So, or you don't have, say, which license to show your license, but you can prove to others you do have a license or certificate issued from the government agencies. I give one example, right? So I know the time. The very it's kind of maybe help to explain. So let's say the flight list. Here is all the travelers, and then the government say, I want to check if this person Alice is in the list. And one way you can do this is I give you the list, right? So you check. Oh, here's all the traveler in this flight. And another way they can do is they put the list in this envelope and you don't see. And then they commit some data. This is not an encrypted list. It's some data, like a hash value. They put it on the blockchain, and then they say, oh, is Alice in that list? And then they give you a proof, some digital proof. And then you can validate against the data recorded on the blockchain. And you know it's true. If we say Alice is in the list, it's in the list. And if not, and then you can validate without asking the airline, say, give me your list, and we'll check. So that's not magic, right? So like you can validate or check the transactions or data bookkeeping without actually seeing the data, right? So that technology has been used in cryptocurrencies, particularly in the privacy coins, and it can be applied for document management as well as bookkeeping, sort of allow the stakeholders to validate the integrity or authenticity of the data, but you don't disclose your actually trade secret to others. So I just give an example. I say you submit the tax data, and then they can validate it, but they don't know how many units you sell, what's the price, and then they don't know that information, but they still can validate actually you do everything right correctly. So, okay, down the road, right? So this is the IBM pallets use blockchain. You can see they manage the data flow along the logistic supply, the chain. And this basically this from the Australia customs. They imagine this inter-customs ledger to manage a certificate and use for the country of origin, the sort of by the customs. And they all require this is which is the research. This economic model of data sharing. So we're maintaining the distributed ledger because this is actually a lack of study understanding. So there has some work in the past, for example, the utility theory of the information sharing, as well as information sharing along forms, among forms. But it's still not very well understood. And then as well as, right, we need more study of the data privacy, how to make sure the data in the ledger is correct, right, if you have information collected from physical environment, as well as standard. So that's pretty much, and I know it's 109 slides, but yeah, so.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Shi. We appreciate
okay, thanks
that
so
once
much.
again. Thank you. We can do some. We have the room for another 30 minutes, so you can do Q&A individually if you would like. But thank you again for coming. Please fill out those forms and hand those in. That'll only make make these better in the future and give us good ideas of what to do next. As well as grab a couple slices of pizza on your way out. As always, fill the bellies first. All right, thank you again very much.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm the reflection to work. I'm the link with you.
Oh, I see. Yeah.